Most parents are afraid of the monsters under the bed. I didn't have to imagine mine. My 6-year-old son drew a map to a murder scene. A murder that happened 30 years before he was born. Let me tell you how we found the body. I used to believe that memory was a biological hard drive. You record what you see, you store what you feel, and when the machine breaks down, when you die, the data is wiped. That was the logic that got me through 15 years as a homicide detective in Seattle. It was the logic that kept me sane when the cases went cold, and the bodies weren't found. Logic was my shield. But shields crack. And mine shattered on a Tuesday night in November. Inside a room painted soft pastel blue, smelling of baby powder and ozone. It started with the rain. It always does in this city. A relentless, driving sheet of water hammering against the glass of our Victorian renovation in Queen Anne. I was downstairs, nursing a lukewarm coffee, staring at a case file that had officially been closed for 3 years, but remained wide open in my head. My wife, Sarah, was asleep. The house was settling, groaning under the wind. Then, the scream cut through the floorboards. It wasn't the cry of a child waking from a bad dream. I know that sound, it's high, frantic pleading. This was different. This was a guttural, raw tear in the silence. It sounded like a grown man screaming through a 6-year-old's throat. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my hand instinctively reaching for a service weapon that hadn't been on my hip for 6 months. I burst into Leo's room. "Leo! I'm here! Dad's here!" The room was dark, save for the orange glow of the street lamp filtering through the blinds, casting prison bar shadows across the carpet. Leo was sitting upright in his bed. He wasn't crying. He wasn't shaking. He was frozen, his small knuckles white as he gripped the duvet. His eyes were wide, fixed on the empty corner of the room near the closet. "Leo?" I whispered, flipping the dimmer switch. The light rose slowly. He blinked, slowly turning his head toward me. His eyes, usually bright and full of that innocent, chaotic energy of boyhood, looked ancient. Glassy. "He was here again," Leo said. His voice was flat, devoid of the panic that had just ripped from his lungs. "Who, buddy? A monster?" I moved to the bed, sitting on the edge, checking his temperature. He was cold. Ice cold. "Not a monster," Leo whispered. "Mr. Holloway." I froze. The name meant nothing to me, yet the way he said it sent a prickle of electricity down my spine. It was the articulation. 6-year-olds slur their L's slightly, they rush their words. Leo had pronounced it with the precise, clipped diction of an adult expressing disdain. "We don't know a Mr. Holloway, Leo. It was just a dream. He smells like the basement," Leo continued, ignoring me. "Like wet dirt, and pennies. Blood. Pennies smell like copper. Copper smells like blood." I rubbed his back, trying to push the detective brain aside and be the father. "There's no one here. Look." I stood up and made a show of opening the closet, checking under the bed. "See? Secure. Perimeter clear." It was our little game. Usually it made him giggle. Tonight, he didn't even blink. He just reached over to his nightstand. He grabbed a fistful of crayons and a piece of construction paper. "I have to draw him," Leo said. "So you can catch him. It's 3 a.m., Leo. If I don't draw him, he comes back." I watched, unsettled, as my son began to draw. Usually, Leo's drawings were typical for his age, stick figures with giant heads, suns with sunglasses. But as the black crayon hit the paper, his hand moved with a rigid, frantic, mechanical precision. He wasn't scribbling. He was shading. He bore down so hard the wax crumbled. Slash. 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 Heavy, vertical lines. 10 minutes passed in silence. Just the sound of rain, and the scratching of wax on paper. When he finished, he didn't hold it up proudly. He pushed it away, face down, and pulled the covers up to his chin. "Don't let him in the cellar, Daddy," he mumbled. His eyes closing, exhaustion finally taking over. I waited until his breathing evened out. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I reached out and turned the paper over. The breath left my lungs. It wasn't a monster. It was a sketch of a building. A lighthouse, but not one I recognized. It was crumbling, standing on a jagged cliff. But the detail was impossible. He had drawn the rust streaks running down the lantern room. He had drawn a specific, broken railing on the catwalk. And at the base of the lighthouse, he had drawn a door. A heavy, iron door with a small, barred window. Standing in that window was a silhouette. A man wearing a wide-brimmed hat. I took the drawing into the hallway, my hands trembling. I walked to my study and turned on the desk lamp, the harsh light hitting the crude, but terrifyingly accurate sketch. Why did this feel familiar? I sat there for hours, staring at it. Around 5 a.m., the house silent, I heard it. A sound drifting down from the top of the stairs. Whistling. It was a slow, melodic tune. Pitch perfect. No missed notes. A complex, trilling melody that rose and fell with a melancholy grace. I walked to the foot of the stairs. Leo was standing at the top landing, silhouetted against the gray morning light. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at his hands. Leo? He stopped whistling. He looked down at me. That song, I said, my throat dry. Where did you hear that? The radio, he said simply. Leo, we don't listen to the radio. We use Spotify. We listen to Baby Shark. The car radio, he insisted. Before the water came in. What water? When the car went into the water. The song was playing. It was number one. I felt the room spin. What song is it, Leo? He tilted his head, looking at me with that same ancient, terrifying expression. You know it, Daddy. Careless Whisper. But the sad part. My blood ran cold. Careless Whisper by George Michael. Released in 1984. It was everywhere in the mid-80s. But the way he whistled it, it wasn't the pop version. It was the saxophone solo. Slowed down. Stripped of the beat. Turned into a dirge. Leo, go back to bed, I managed to say. He turned and walked back to his room. I rushed to my laptop. I didn't search for the song. I searched for the name. Holloway. Missing persons. 1980s, Pacific Northwest. Nothing. Holloway. Murder suspect. Seattle. Nothing. I looked at the drawing of the lighthouse again. I scanned it into the computer. I ran a reverse image search. 0 matches on the drawing itself. But then I typed in the visual description. Abandoned lighthouse, iron door, rusty catwalk, Washington coast. I scrolled through hundreds of stock photos. Nothing. Then, I switched to the archives of the Seattle Post-Intelligencer. Digital microfiche. I found an article from October 1985. The headline read, Search called OFF for missing architect. The photo was grainy, black and white. It showed a man standing in front of a structure he was restoring. A private folly built on a cliffside near Cape Disappointment. The railing was broken in the photo. The rust streaks were there. And the man in the photo, the missing architect. His name wasn't Holloway. His name was Arthur Penhaligon. But the man standing next to him, the contractor identified in the caption as the last person to see him alive? Site foreman, Silas Holloway. I stared at the screen. The date of the disappearance was November 14, 1985. Today was November 14th. Leo turned 6 today. I looked at the drawing again. At the bottom, in faint yellow crayon I hadn't noticed before, Leo had written numbers. 46, 12, 124. I realized then that my son wasn't just having nightmares. He was giving me a statement. The sun came up, but the house didn't get any warmer. I called in sick. In the silence of the kitchen, I watched Leo eat his cereal. He looked like my son. But the way he held the spoon. He held it like a cigarette. Resting between his index and middle finger, tapping the edge of the bowl rhythmically. Tap. 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 Leo, I said, my voice too loud. How did you sleep? He didn't look up. The water was cold, Dad. It came in through the vents first. I put my coffee down slowly. The water in your dream? Not a dream. He corrected me, sharply. The car. The blue station wagon. The vents hiss when the water touches the heater. I searched for the vehicle description on my laptop. Missing vehicle, 1983 Volvo 240 wagon. Color, midnight blue. Leo, I asked, trying to keep my hands steady. What happened in the car? Mr. Holloway was driving, Leo said. He said we were going to look at the site. But he turned off the road. He took the logging trail. The one with the broken gate. And then? He got out. He locked the doors. He pushed. Leo mimed the motion of shoving something heavy. The car rolled. It bounced. Then splash. Down into the quarry. Not the ocean. The quarry. My detective brain was fighting a war against my rationality. The police report from 1985 hypothesized that Penhaligon had driven off the cliffs into the Pacific Ocean. But a quarry? Which quarry, Leo? The one where they dug the stone for the tower. Near the big tree that looks like a hand. I needed to test him. I pulled up a scanned image of a company picnic from 1984. 20 men and women. Do you know any of these people? I asked. Leo walked over. He didn't hesitate. His finger stabbed directly onto a man in the back row. A man with a thick mustache, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. That's Silas, Leo whispered. The fear in his voice was palpable. He has the hammer. He always has the hammer in his belt loop. I zoomed in. There, hanging from the man's tool belt, was a heavy framing hammer. And who are you? I asked, pointing to the man next to him, Arthur Penhaligon. Leo looked at the man. He looked at Arthur's kind eyes. Leo started to cry. Not the scream from last night, but a soft, heartbroken sobbing. That's me, he choked out. I miss her, Dad. I miss Emily. Emily was Arthur Penhaligon's wife. She died in 1998. I grabbed Leo and hugged him. I was shaking. The skepticism was dead. My son was a witness to a murder that happened 30 years before he was born. That afternoon, I found the location on old maps. Old Granite Quarry. Abandoned 1960. I looked at the drawing again. The numbers. 46, 12, 124. If the car was in the quarry, where was the body? Leo said the car went in. He didn't say he went in. I went back upstairs. Leo was playing with Legos. Leo, I asked gently, when the car went into the water, were you inside it? Leo didn't look up. No. I was already dead. The air left the room. What? Silas hit me first, Leo said matter-of-factly. He touched the back of his head. With the hammer. Crack. Like an egg. I fell down on the wood. The wood? The floor. In the tower. We were arguing about the reinforcement. He hit me, Leo continued. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. But I could see. He dragged me. Then he put me in the hole. The quarry? No, Leo said. The hole in the floor. Before he poured the concrete. My stomach turned. Then he drove my car to the quarry. To make it look like I left. I grabbed the drawing, the lighthouse with the numbers. Sheet 46. Foundation plan. Section 12. The sub-basement. Elevation 124. The height of the pour. Leo was telling me exactly where Arthur Penhaligon was. He was entombed in the concrete foundation of the lighthouse itself. I stood up. I grabbed my keys, my badge, and my .38 special. Get your coat, Leo. We're going to find you. And we're going to find Mr. Holloway. As we walked to the car, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Detective, a voice rasped. It sounded like gravel grinding on glass. I saw your search history. You're looking into Arthur. If you come to the tower, bring the boy. Arthur always did love a reunion. The line went dead. We weren't just investigating a cold case anymore. We were driving straight into a trap set 40 years ago. The drive to the coast was a descent into purgatory. The deeper we went, the taller the trees became. The rain didn't stop. Turn here, Leo said suddenly. Leo, the GPS says. The GPS is wrong. Turn at the split stump. I turned the wheel. We were off the map. We crested the hill, and there it stood. The Folly. It was exactly as Leo had drawn it. A scar on the landscape. We walked up the crumbling concrete steps. Leo skipped the third one. Why did you skip that? It's loose, Leo said without looking back. It wobbles. I tested it with my boot. The heavy stone step rocked violently. Impossible. We reached the iron door. I pushed it open. Police! Identify yourself! Darkness. Leo walked into the circle. He stopped in the middle of the floor. He stomped his foot. Thud. Thud. Solid concrete. Here, Leo whispered. He pointed to a hairline crack in the slab. He didn't mix it right. He was in a rush. He poured the batch too wet. I knelt down and scraped at the crack. Creak. The sound came from above. I spun around, weapon drawn. A match flared on the spiral staircase. The flame illuminated a face. Skin like parchment paper. A wide-brimmed hat. Silas Holloway. He was sitting on the stairs, a shotgun resting across his knees. You look like him, Silas said, staring at Leo. Arrogant. Even as a child. Drop the weapon, Holloway! Silas chuckled. Over? It was over 30 years ago. This is just the epilogue. I knew he'd come back. Arthur never could let things go. The mix is wrong, Silas. Even from the grave, he's complaining about the concrete. Leo, get behind me. He remembers, Silas growled. Don't you, boy? You remember the hammer. Leo stepped out. I remember you begging, Leo said. His voice cold. After you hit me. You cried. You said you didn't mean it. Silas froze. The match burned his fingers. He dropped it. I didn't want to hurt you, Artie, Silas whispered. The insurance, it was the only way. You buried me alive, Leo said. I woke up in the dark. I tasted the wet cement. Stop it! Silas screamed. He raised the shotgun. I fired. The bullet sparked off the iron railing. I missed. Silas racked the slide. CHK. I killed you once, Arthur. I can kill a ghost. Run, Leo! I tackled the boy just as the shotgun roared. The blast shredded the air. Go! The door! But Leo stood his ground. He looked at the crack in the floor. No. Help me! Help me! He screamed at the floor. Suddenly, the tower groaned. A deep, tectonic rumble. The foundation, Leo said. It's weak. The storm. The vibration. The crack in the center of the room, the tomb of Arthur Penhaligon, split open. The concrete slab buckled. Silas lost his footing as the staircase detached. He tumbled, hitting the ground hard, rolling toward the crack. The jagged opening widened, revealing a black void. No! Silas whimpered. No, stay down! From the darkness of the hole, something pale was visible. Bones. And gleaming in the flashlight beam, the head of a framing hammer. The floor tilted. Silas screamed as he slid backward, clawing at the edge of the hole. Arthur! Please! I grabbed Leo, pulling him back. He's not Arthur! I yelled. He's my son! Silas looked at Leo one last time. Leo just watched with the impassive judgment of the dead. Goodbye, Silas, Leo whispered. The staircase gave way completely. Silas Holloway vanished into the pit, screaming as the tower consumed itself. Silence is heavy. When the dust settled, I checked Leo. Leo? He's gone, Leo said. It wasn't Arthur's voice anymore. It was Leo. High, shaky, terrified. He started to cry. I held him tight. The police arrived. I told them to dig. It took 3 days. They found the skeleton in the sub-basement. Blunt force trauma, the medical examiner said. Depressed fracture. Posterior cranium. Looks like a hammer strike. Crack. Like an egg. And the weapon? I asked. We found this near the pelvic bone, an officer said. A rusted steel framing hammer. Look at the claw, I said. Is one of the tips broken off? The officer squinted. Yeah. About a ½ inch. How did you know that? I didn't answer. They found Silas Holloway's body 10 feet down, twisted amongst the rubble. In death, they were finally reunited. The funeral for Arthur Penhaligon was small. Leo stood at the edge of the grave. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a single Lego brick. A red one. He tossed it into the hole. Bye, Leo whispered. He turned and ran back to me, grinning. Can we get ice cream now? We are back to normal now. Sarah doesn't know the details. But I know. Sometimes, late at night, I look at his hands. I wonder what else they have touched. I used to believe memory was a hard drive that got wiped when you died. I was wrong. Memory is a radio signal. It bounces off the atmosphere, drifting through the static, waiting for a receiver to tune it in. My son was the receiver. I sat at my desk and pulled out the drawing of the lighthouse. I struck a match. I watched the paper curl and blacken. Case closed, I whispered. But as the smoke rose, twisting in the air, I could have sworn, just for a second, it formed the shape of a man in a wide-brimmed hat, tipping it to me, before dissolving into the dark.